Hi, this is Teacher Jennifer from U.S. Citizenship Podcast. Every week we bring you the practice interviews, quizzes, resources, and the latest news that helps you get ready for your U.S. citizenship interview. Today we're going to learn about Juneteenth. Juneteenth celebrates the coming of the Emancipation Proclamation to the slaves in Texas. Today we're going to listen a little bit to an interview I did in 2012 with Robin Braxton, one of the organizers for our local Juneteenth celebration. She's going to tell us about the historical origins of Juneteenth. Then we're going to have 19 citizenship questions in honor of Juneteenth. Let's get started.
We did a podcast. It's about the Emancipation Proclamation. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and then talk about Juneteenth.
Well, the Emancipation Proclamation supposedly freed the slaves. But we were a country that sold crops to make the money to keep everything going. And slaves were the cheap labor. So, yes, Lincoln freed the slaves, but at that time when he did this, it took 2 years for the information to get from Washington, D.C. to the Midwest. So, in Texas, in Galveston actually, Fort Galveston, it was a Union soldier and his troop who brought in the information that the slaves were free. And it took them 2 years to get it into that area.
So was this actually when the Civil War was still going on that they brought in this information?
No.
Okay, this was after the Civil War.
This was after the Civil War, but remember now, they had a crop they had to bring in.
Mm-hmm.
And so the slave owners or the farmers, the big farmers, made sure there was no news about anything like that spread.
One of the things that was really surprising studying citizenship and preparing this information for my students, there was still some residues of slavery all the way into the 1840s in some of the northern states. And that the Emancipation Proclamation freed the slaves only in the South and did not free the slaves in the border states, the states that had slavery that remained faithful to the Union.
Well, I'm from Maryland. The Mason-Dixon line ran straight through Maryland, or kind of divided the state.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the Mason-Dixon line was the north from the south. So it was the free slaves from those still indentured. And it was right. Whatever side of the border you were on, that made the difference. So you could still be in Maryland and still be a slave. I have to say this so everybody knows, although it's celebrated more so as African Americans, there were Irish slaves, there were, a wide variety of people who were indentured servants or slaves. So it freed a lot of different people. Some could blend in better, so it made it easier for them to be free. Whereas African Americans, because of skin color and other things, didn't blend in as well. So it was harder for them, unless they stayed in black townships, to say they were free.
19 citizenship questions in honor of Juneteenth. I ask the questions and give you time to respond. Question 1. In 1808, the U.S. Constitution prohibited the importation of slaves, yet it did not outlaw slavery. Question. What group of people was taken to America and sold as slaves? Question 2. Congressman Abraham Lincoln publicly disagreed with the annexation of Texas and supported a bill to prohibit slavery in territory acquired during the war. Question. Name one war fought by the United States in the 1800s. Question 3. The Underground Railroad was a network of secret routes that helped slaves to escape and seek sanctuary in the free northern states and Canada. Question. Name one state that borders Canada. Question 4. As a conductor on the Underground Railroad, Harriet Tubman safely guided slaves to freedom. In 2020, she will be featured on the front of a new $20 bill. Question: Under our Constitution, some powers belong to the federal government. What is one power of the federal government? Question 5. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 said that all runaway slaves must be returned to the South. It tried to force people to act against their anti-slavery beliefs. In response, Northern states passed personal liberty laws, but these laws were ruled unconstitutional. Question: What does the judicial branch do? Question 6. On July 5, 1852, Frederick Douglass asked, "What to the slave is the 4th of July?" He contrasted American values of liberty and independence with the slave's lack of basic human rights. Question: What are two rights in the Declaration of Independence? Question 7. The Southern states depended on slave labor to grow cotton. The Northern states depended on Southern cotton to manufacture cheap cloth for export. Question: Name one problem that led to the Civil War. Question 8. The Republican Party came out of the Free Soil Party. Its motto was "Free soil, free speech, free labor, and free men." In 1860, the Republican Party elected its first president, Abraham Lincoln. Question: What is the political party of the president now? Question 9. When Lincoln was elected president, 11 slaveholding states left the Union and created the Confederate States of America. The Confederate States of America set up its capital in Richmond, Virginia, 100 miles south of the Union capital. Question: What is the capital of the United States? Question 10. The war began on April 12, 1861, when Confederate forces fired on Union troops stationed at Fort Sumter, South Carolina. Question: Name the U.S. war between the North and the South. Question 11. On April 16, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln signed the D.C. Emancipation Act, which freed about 3,100 slaves in the U.S. Capitol. 8 months later, on New Year's Day, 1863, Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Question: What did the Emancipation Proclamation do? Question 12. On November 19, 1863, President Lincoln dedicated the Gettysburg battlefield as a cemetery. He linked the soldiers' ultimate sacrifice to the equality and freedom for all Americans, free and formerly enslaved. Question: What was one important thing that Abraham Lincoln did? Question 13. In April 1865, the Confederate Army surrendered and Lincoln was assassinated. In June 1865, Union General Gordon Granger and his troops arrived in Galveston Island to occupy Texas. On June 19th, General Order Number 3 was read aloud, announcing the total emancipation of slaves. This day is now celebrated as Juneteenth, or Emancipation Day. Question: when do we celebrate Independence Day? Question 14. African American regiments fought in the Civil War as part of the Union Army. After the Civil War, the Buffalo Soldiers were established by Congress as the first peacetime all-black military units in the regular U.S. Army. These units went on to fight in the Indian Wars and served as some of the first National Park Rangers. Question: when must all men register for the Selective Service? Question 15. The 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution expanded the Emancipation Proclamation and abolished slavery in the United States. Question: what is an amendment? Question 16. The 14th Amendment addressed citizenship rights, equal protection under the law, and the legal status of former slaves and alienated Confederates. Question: what is one promise you make when you become a U.S. citizen? Question 17. The 15th Amendment prohibits federal and state governments from denying a citizen the right to vote based on the citizen's race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Question: there are 4 amendments to the Constitution about who can vote. Describe one of them. Question 18. If D.C.'s Emancipation Day falls during a weekend, it affects the Internal Revenue Service's due date for tax returns. Question: when is the last day you can normally send in federal income tax forms? Question 19. The song "Lift Every Voice and Sing" remembers the enslavement, emancipation, and the eternal hope of the African American community. This song is commonly called the Black American National Anthem and is sung at many Juneteenth events. Question: what is the name of the national anthem? Thanks to the students and staff of Milpitas Adult School. Please visit us on the web at uscitizenpod.com, where you will find more resources for Juneteenth. Also, check our calendar. Under the month of February, you will see resources for African American History Month and citizenship and civics resources in African languages. Don't miss a single episode of U.S. Citizenship Podcast. Get our free app at the Google Play Store or iTunes Store. Look for U.S. Citizenship Podcast. Thanks for listening. I know you will be a great American citizen. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.